I'm sure, unless you have been living under a rock, that we all know what is ESG investing. It is the new words or new buzzwords of 2019, 2020 when it got more popularity. So, for those people who have been living under a rock, ESG investing is about looking at an investment in the non-financial parts, like is it taking care of the environment, the society, and the governance. Now, in a world where financial data is difficult to understand and fathom with norms and standards, etc., to think that one can do an environment impact, social and a governance for an investment is, I think, a little very hopeful. I do not know how much we are able to do this. But yes, it is a new fad. Very many people think it's a great thing to do. ESG is slightly different from not investing in sin companies. When you say sin companies, you meant companies with tobacco, alcohol, pornography, and those kind of things which are frowned upon by society. Of course, you can take it a little further, and if you're a vegan, you can say it should not include dairy. If you are an animal lover, you can say it should not include cosmetics. If you are a very big investor, you can try to influence the governments in countries by funding them, like Soros does, by funding the opposition, right? Or Soros is claimed to have been doing, right? So these are the things that you try to influence. So you say, oh, I will not invest in this company because it did not support a black right movement, or in Indian context, maybe this company does not encourage backward classes getting jobs, or something like that. You could pick up anything that you want. It is your choice. So you could say, because of that, I would not invest. For example, I had friends who would not invest in companies which dealt with fishing and things like that, because they were Jains. Now, when Tata Steel started exporting shrimps long ago, once upon a time when you had to export enough, you had to bring in enough foreign exchange to claim foreign exchange for importing things. So they would export rice and bananas and shrimps, right? So then people said, oh, then we can't invest in Tata Steel. I remember people selling shares of Tata Steel because they exported shrimps. I have no clue whether they bought it back, but yeah, so you create your own definition of what is ESG. For example, I don't invest in companies like Monsanto, and I don't invest in a company like ITC, where I used to be an investor long ago. Somewhere I felt that, if this company has some of the what I would say, the ill will of many people who have lost their lives, or whose lives have been ruined by either alcohol or tobacco, I don't want that kind of money. But that's a personal call, and I was ready for a lesser return, but luckily for me, I got better return when I shifted from ITC to Siemens. Sheer luck, complete luck. This was about 3-4 years back, when Siemens used to be 300 plus. ITC used to be 300 plus, right? So that's it. So what is ESG? ESG is beyond sin. It says the company will invest only in good companies, investors will invest only in companies which take care of the environment, society, and governance. Of course, there is the other extreme of somebody saying, and this is of course not a reporting thing. Nobody is reporting about this. But companies are still making a mention that we are doing the following things for ESG. That mention is being there, but it is as of now not mandatory, not anywhere, not even in the US. So India will follow after the US does. So having seen what is ESG investing, and knowing that this is beyond sin-based investing, let us see what one venture capitalist said. ESG is the biggest fraud. And he says governance is hard quality to measure, but rating a company's environment and social impact is even more challenging. And he says it's not only the Boohoo is not the only green pioneer who had to face the wrath of the short sellers in 2020. So is there what should the company do if there are a lot of people who feel that this company is not ESG compliant? I really don't know, because if a company throws in a lot of cash, people will buy it. So people will continue to buy ITC, immaterial of what you keep saying that tobacco is good, bad, ugly, because who is going to decide this? A guy who is smoking or a girl who is smoking is supposed to be 18 years of age and making the choice. Of course, you can look at young kids smoking, that is happening in good societies, bad societies, in schools and colleges. But the fact is, they are making the choice. If they are old enough to know whom to vote for, or if they know that they should have soft drink or not have soft drink, I think they should all be allowed to smoke. And when you're talking of ESG, I find it very funny because I was comparing the portfolio of a Flexi-cap fund with an ESG fund, and I found absolute similarity in one fund house. The weightages were different, but otherwise it was the same. Now I have a very sinister theory why the ESG was launched, but of course the most straightforward answer is it's a fantastic AUM collector. It is very nice to talk about ESG investing because a lot of youngsters would like to invest in companies which are socially responsible, so they would happily put money in ESG. And I doubt whether you will be able to make out the difference between an ESG fund and a regular Flexi-cap fund. People will talk about Ambani's governance or lack of governance and still invest in Reliance without worrying too much about governance or without worrying too much about environment. Then, because if you are worried about ESG, then you should not be investing in an oil company. However, the same people will not invest in, say, Coal India or NTPC, saying, oh, this is fossil fuel. But I'm very happy to invest in the Reliance, Coal India and in NTPC, simply because all of them throw a lot of cash on the table, right? So as far as I am concerned, I get good yield, so I am investing, but I don't invest in ITC, which to me is causing ill health among people, or Monsanto, which cause suicides. But I am not commenting on that because I have not done enough research. But whatever I have heard, I am not very comfortable investing in these companies. I was an investor, I'm a long-term investor, maybe 10-year, 15-year investor, at least in Monsanto and in ITC. Made very good money, got good dividends, no doubt about that. But then at some stage decided that I don't need it in my portfolio, right? And I was ready for a lesser yield, like I said. So this is what it is. So there are people who are complaining about it. There are people like me who feel there is no difference between an ESG portfolio and a Flexi-cap portfolio, because I would anyway look at the companies whether if they are impacting the environment in a bad way, which means it's not a sustainable business. Am I worried about governance? Yes, I'm worried about governance because I want to know that if the company earns a rupee, it will pay 30 paise as tax and leave the balance on the table for the shareholder. Yes, of course, the promoter in India will take a share, but what is he taking? For me, that is more important than to say he should be 100% honest. Does not happen in real life, right? I want a promoter who will say, I am reasonably clean. I don't want a guy, a company like an Infosys to say we are spotlessly clean, because you get enough evidence to know that companies are, it's almost impossible for companies to be spotlessly clean, right? So to me, ESG does not make too much sense, because if I were to worry about ESG, then I would have to look at my portfolio, and when I start looking at my portfolio, every company looks bad. I have EID Parry and I say, oh my God, sugar is going to create hell for people. I have HDFC Bank and I know how much of ULIP selling HDFC Bank does. I have shares of Bajaj Finance and I know how much of overselling and killing they do to the potential clients, right? I look at a company like Hindustan Lever and I realize how much of margins they are building in. Where do you draw the line on social responsibility? Where do you draw the line on environment? And governance is a joke, right? If you see the relationship between Ratan Tata and Cyrus Mistry, and if you tell me that governance in the Tata group is good, I think the judge should be Cyrus Mistry, not you and me holding 100 shares. We are not the judge. Ask Cyrus Mistry about governance in the Tata Group, right? There are enough people who will talk about governance in the Tata Group. So what are we talking about? It's very... If you're talking about the MNCs, look at the overriding charge that they're taking for bringing in their brand name. After all, their brand was built in India using shareholder money. So if a company has built up its brand in India, why should they be charging a fee? Well, everybody is charging a fee. The Tata Group is charging the fee. MNCs are charging a fee. You as an investor are looking for something very simple. If you put in the money, what is the return that you get over a long period of time? Period. Don't get into too much of ESG investing and things like that. If you look at an ESG fund and if you think the AMC charges are too high, don't invest, right? If you look at a fund and you fund house and you find that they've got large cap funds where you can invest or Flexi-cap fund where you can invest and the portfolio looks same as the ESG, then don't invest. It's not necessary. However, ESG is a fantastic sales tool for mutual funds, insurance companies, IFAs to sell to younger people, richer people and saying, sir, you should add some more flavor to your fund which you have. So I get portfolios from well-educated people who are not well-educated finance professionals, and you find that the portfolio runs into 14, 15, 20 funds and then 30 companies. There is no logic at all, and overall they are underperforming the index, which is bound to happen, right? So why should they be in so many funds when they can just put money in maybe a couple of index funds? Simply because good funds are available, but there has to be some logic in buying. So people buy a large cap fund, a mid cap fund, a flexi cap fund, a multi cap fund, and then a small cap and a mid cap, and then a new ESG fund. So chalo sir, इसमें भी करते हैं 25,000 का SIP, इसमें भी करते हैं. Fantastic. I'm at least happy if it's 25,000. It turns out to be 2,500 done in 10 funds, right? Because technology has allowed that and it is easy to do. People are doing that. So where is the question of picking up one more ESG fund? I don't have any ESG fund. I don't invest in ESG fund. And you must hear what, if you go to the extent of seeing what Mr. Palihapitiya, I hope I get the spelling right, get the pronunciation right. It is Palihapitiya. Speaking, he says ESG is a great, I like his quotation, he believes ESG is a great marketing tool for banks and asset managers, and he is not convinced that the timeliness of outcomes through activity by asset managers in particular. Okay, there must be some doubt about the willingness of banks to support green bond issuance while providing finance to fossil fuel companies, and concerns about greenwashing in asset management. Absolutely true. The same company which, the same bank which is happy to lend to NTPC would also be investing in Reliance and then standing up in the AGM and saying we are ESG oriented. If you are ESG oriented, you should be choosing your clients who are ESG oriented. That looks very difficult. In my portfolio, I can look at every share and say it is not ESG compliant. The quality of governance in India leaves a lot to be desired. Lot of young, small companies are far better in governance than the so-called biggies, whether it is in IT or whether it is the Tata Group. So I'm not enamored by ESG, but I'm not like Palihapitiya willing to say ESG is a total fraud. Partial maybe, but total, I still reserve my comments. Thank you.